Of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. I ask for the secretary to call the roll.
Gordon Backlund.
Present.
Kyle Maroney.
Present.
William Holm.
Present.
Elizabeth Showalter.
Present.
David Ostroff.
Present.
Thank you. And the first item on the agenda is approval of expenditures, a copy of which has been distributed to each of the commissioners. Is there a motion to approve those expenditures?
I move to approve the expenditures as presented. Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the expenditures. Any discussion on any of the items? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is approval of the March 7 meetings of the HRA. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any changes? Hearing none. All those in favor of the minutes as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is approved. Next item is approval of amendment to development contract, Sherman Associates. Mr. Boland, you have information on that?
I do. Chairman Holm, Commissioners. I'll give a little bit of an overview of the project itself as well for some of those that maybe haven't been following along at home on this. It's been a while since we've talked about the project itself. But Sherman Associates is proposing a 4-story, 95-unit market rate rental building for the corner of 61st and Main Street. This will be the first of 3 buildings that they plan to start construction on this summer. This first building will be a mix of studios, 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, and will have underground parking with it. The second building they're proposing to build on our North Star Rail Station site is a senior building, and this will be a total of 3 stories in height. It will have 107 units serving people that are 55 years of age and older, and will have underground parking and a mix of 1- and 2-bedroom units. The third building is a mixed income building. It will have 72 total units and be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. It will have some underground parking and is really designed to serve families that are earning 60% or less of the area median income. This is just a site plan to give you some idea. The building you see up on the northeast corner of that drawing is the market rate building. That's the corner of 61st and Main. As you go south on the site, the L-shaped building in the southeast corner is the mixed income building. And then the building you see on the west side closest to the railroad tracks is the senior building. As you are aware, since last May 2018, when you approved the development agreement, the delays that we had were caused by Met Council's parking needs study, and combining those delays with an unsuccessful application for housing tax credits, and then the way that labor, materials, and interest rates have all increased, it's created a gap of about 1.35 million for the mixed income building itself. Sherman Associates plans to fill that gap by negotiating some of their construction costs downwards by about $500,000, deferring their developer's fee, and then obtaining a $600,000 low interest loan from the authority to help fill that gap for that mixed income building. Along with the amendment to allow for that loan to happen, we're also changed dates in the existing contract. Things, with the delays, there were closings and things that need to be pushed back. So those are in the amendment itself. And then the amendment too also recognizes the fact that there have been some units added to the senior and the market rate building since we originally started talking about this project. So with that, we do have Carol Meddy from Sherman Associates with us tonight. And between Carol and Jim Casterly and I, hopefully we can answer any questions you may have. But we would recommend you approve the resolution you had in your packet that approves this restated contract. So, be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? This is quite a significant project that adds a great deal of affordable housing, which is a great step forward for the transit zone. So if there are no other questions, discussion, I ask for a motion to approve the development contract.
Mr. Chairman, I had one. The 2% interest per annum, does that apply only to the one that's subsidized?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
The 2% per annum interest, is that just to the one that's subsidized, the third one we're looking at, the mixed income?
It applies, yes, to the loan we were making on this.
Yeah, but it doesn't apply to the other two buildings.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the amendment to the redevelopment contract for Sherman Associates North Star Development Agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved to amend the redevelopment contract with Sherman Associates. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the land sale to Sherman Associates, 6050 Main Street, for the same project. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to open the public hearing. And Paul, I guess we ask you to provide some more input on this.
So I'll keep this very brief. You are required anytime you dispose of property to hold a public hearing, and that is what you're doing right now. Of course, with Sherman getting ready to start construction this summer, now would be the right time to go ahead and hold this public hearing and give your final approval on the sale of the property. We do recommend that you adopt the resolution you had in your packet that authorizes the sale of the property as described in the development agreement.
Very good, thank you. Could I ask the representative from Sherman, Carol?
Yes.
Could you come up and address us?
Hi, I'm Carol Meddy. I'm with Sherman Associates.
Very, very good. Tell us about your plans for construction. If this is approved, what are your plans for constructing? Which building comes first? That type of thing.
So our plan is to be breaking ground this summer, and the way it would work is we would close on the purchase of the land sale on the market rate and senior property at the same time. And at that point, we would break ground on construction on both of those together. It would be one construction project, although they'll be phased a little bit as construction goes. What our contractor plans on doing is starting with the northeast corner of the site and kind of working the progress back. Our priority at the beginning will be to turn over the Metro Transit parking lot back to them as soon as possible. So we anticipate that taking 3 to 4 months. And then once that's complete, that can be put back into operation while we continue to work on the buildings. Again, the market rate one would probably be a month or two ahead of the senior building.
Oh, okay. And approximate time for completion?
About 12 months, although because of the phasing, I think, and the focus on the Metro lot at the beginning, it might be more like 16 months total for all 3 of those projects.
And the mixed-use building?
That one will be, right now, we're planning on being able to close on that one in August. That one's on a little bit of a different time frame because it depends on our ability to get a bond allocation for the tax credits from the state. So we need to get that approval, and then from there, we would be ready to go. As far as, design, working with our contractor, all 3 projects are being kind of planned for together. And so the affordable project is really just more of getting the financing lined up, which is different than how we line up the financing for the market rate projects.
I see. Very good. Any other questions for Chairman?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Casserly?
Mr. Chairman, that's why you really amended the development agreement, was to facilitate the construction of the affordable housing. That is what has gotten more and more complicated. And that was, the authority very graciously agreed to assist with a loan to Sherman and Associates to make that project work. So it is, there's a lot of security, and we're very comfortable with the way it's being managed. But that is the reason that we're really here asking for this to be amended, and that is the timetable that Sherman and folks are looking at right now. So the agreement allows some flexibility in timing and in closings and when each phase has to be completed, but it's really all part of an integrated contract. And they do pay, I should point out too, because maybe folks don't understand, with the closing in each one of the first 2 phases, they are paying $500,000 each for the land. And it's the 3rd phase, the affordable housing one, they're also paying for it, but it's through a deferred loan. And so that's part of what the public hearing is about too, is so that folks understand that this is all part of the development process, that you're conveying land that the authority owns, and that you're being compensated for it, and you anticipate having this kind of development occur. So it's all part of your program.
And this also involves some arrangements with the rail authority.
It certainly does, Mr. Chairman. Many months of ongoing discussions and meetings and sorting things out as recently as 2 days ago. Yesterday, how time flies. So, trying to manage getting everything freed up. This has all been anticipated for years, but it's a matter, there's a lot of different authorities involved and a lot of different governmental agencies. So we need to work our way through the entire process, and I think it's coming to a conclusion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Backlund?
this is a holistic project. Is it to some extent designed to each of the buildings to stand on its own, or is it an integrated project that you're really waiting for the 3rd part of it to get approved?
As far as the contract goes, the affordable piece is not, an integral or requirement for us to be able to proceed on the other two or the first two buildings. But, our hope is, and what we'd like to do is all three of them ultimately. Each project, the way we're setting up the financing, and just the separation of operations and everything, they will be financially independent buildings, but we're operating them all as Sherman Associates, and the addition of the clubhouse area in the middle is really what we've created, that we sort of link all three buildings kind of together, which is unique. I mean, we actually don't have other projects where, we have this sort of shared clubhouse amenity. So we might, in a normal building, throw, a resident party. Sometimes there might be a dog party. Everybody kind of brings their dogs down. We have treats and people get to meet the residents and all that. Here, it's unique because we actually could do that in the central clubhouse area, invite all three buildings, even though they're all separate properties. There's really that kind of integration component with it. So while the projects are separate, they're also all connected together. But the affordable piece is the one that is contingent upon securing all of the affordable financing that we need, whereas the market rate and senior, we're required with our contract with the city to close on that together and work on those two at the same time. We can't do just the market rate or just the senior.
Mr. Chairman, it seems like it'll be complex because you'll have some different loan rates, and you're gonna apply your overhead uniformly across it because you'll be doing these jointly, hopefully.
The market rate and senior projects we're anticipating to work with the same lender. They would both be financed very similarly. So, and there's not a lot of differences in terms of how a bank is going to look at it, how we're going to look at it from a financial perspective. There will be ultimately, and this kind of, I lean on my legal team for this, but there'll be easement agreements amongst these three properties that addresses who pays for and how do you maintain that central clubhouse, and just dealing with, all right, we have some shared driveways, that sort of thing. That'll all be handled as part of legal easement documents that we have running between all three properties. So if there's a different bank on the affordable property, they require, those sorts of agreements to be in place so they know that one property is not being overburdened with having to handle the maintenance of certain shared areas on the property.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, then as you're designing and building, will each one have the amenities similar, or will there be some differentiation? I don't use the term loosely, but quality or the expensiveness versus the less expensive in things like kitchen appliances and stuff like that.
Our goal is to have very similar qualities in all three projects. The affordable is always a little bit different because there's an entire set of guidelines around green building requirements, design requirements, all of that. So that does tend to make that building slightly different in that regard. We have completely different HVAC systems there because of that. There might be different windows and all sorts of things like that. But overall, we are anticipating the design level, the level of luxury to be the same across the properties. There's really no significant difference in the quality of the units compared to the market rate and senior. They'll both have granite countertops, they actually both have a pool. The senior is indoor, and that's because we do that with most of our senior properties because that provides the year-round benefit of having swimming classes and a lot of those things. So there's a little bit difference in each project when it comes to the common areas. The senior property, we have a little family room with a kids area. So if you are having your family over, you can, grandparents can actually have a spot for their kids to come and hang out and spend time with the family. We don't have that type of room in the market rate. So there's a little bit of differences, but we would really try to design it so everybody had some specialty, focused amenities on that type of resident. With the affordable building, there tends to be more children and families, which is why we have the tot lot and splash pad for that property.
One last question. Will the outside be differentiated, or will they all be very similar?
They're all being tied in with different architectural elements. I guess it didn't show, I'm not sure if it showed all three renderings on this PowerPoint, but they have similar elements. And I'm not the architect, so I might be, butchering this here, but everything's going to have the dark bronze windows and balcony look, along with a dark gray kind of trim piece that you'll see along the top. The senior and the market rate will probably have pretty similar brick in the brick elements, but you'll see with the senior we have some white board and batten areas, and market rate we have some. I think we're doing some spots of metal, so they each kind of have their own uniqueness, but they have a very complementary design. So they will look fairly independent. It won't be, let's say, CALO is 3 phases of the same project. This will be a little bit, more different between the buildings since they are 3 different buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. We're excited to move forward with this project, and we've been very thankful at how helpful the city and everyone on the staff has been working with us to make this work. I know the affordable project, we've been really working hard to get that deal to come together, and we're excited to move forward on all of it. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman? Paul, what is the number of parking spaces left on that side of the tracks?
There will be 80 parking stalls left.
Versus today is?
330.
Okay. I know we had discussed that in the past, but just wanted to clarify.
Very good. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I would move that, close the public hearing.
Motion made
Second.
and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Which brings us to the next item, which is the approval of the land sale to Sherman Associates, 6050 Main Street. Paul?
At this point, we're just waiting for you to make the motion on approving the resolution.
Okay, so this is acknowledging we've approved the amended contract, and now the formality of approving the land sale is upon us. And is there a motion to approve the public land sale by the Housing and Redevelopment Authority to Sherman Associates at 6050 Main Street? Is there a motion to approve that sale?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Showalter. Is there a second?
Second?
Second. Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Next, we have approval of an amendment to development contract with Fridley Investments LLC. Again, Mr. Boland.
Certainly. Chairman Holm, Commissioners, I'll give just a little background on this project as well. But you'll recall that back when the city started talking about building a new municipal center, we started talking to some of our neighboring property owners about purchasing the old City Hall site. At the time, discussions with Fairview and Ebenezer Homes, which is their nonprofit senior housing component. Discussions with them then led to interest from Steve Dunbar of Ivy Properties and Jim Winkles of Amcon Construction, specifically for them to build a 135-unit senior building that Ebenezer Homes would then manage. Their building, got an image on the screen for you, would be a mix of some independent living with assisted living, and then also have memory care as part of that. With the vacation of The University Avenue Service Drive, this property will now be accessed from Formies Avenue and then also from Fifth Street. The police garages and former gun range that were on the north edge of the old City Hall property, those are going to stay in place. They're really an amenity for the new owners. They'll be able to use that for storage, and I think they were gonna even had talked about maybe putting a small wood shop in for some of the residents to use. But the building also acts as a, really as a retaining wall for the parking lot and the building to the north of it. So there's many advantages to keeping that and not demolishing that portion. You know, in August of 2018, we started with an exclusive negotiations agreement with this development group. We laid out many of the elements that eventually went into the development agreement that you approved in January. And these were very similar elements to most of the development agreements you've looked at in the past. But one of the things we had in there was a May 1st closing on the property. As we've continued to work with the development group, there's some additional time needed to work through some of the difficult demolition issues that are on the site, specifically with the existing parking ramp that was out there. The way it's a kind of a high tension cable type of construction, and it would be the south wall of the building, of the lower level of parking structure, actually holds up part of the parking lot to the south of the existing parking lot. So there's a number of issues that we're trying to work through with that. There are different options. The most cost-effective option is to really leave that wall in place, and it's just a matter then of kind of how we brace that up, and if we just use dirt and a number of things that the development team has been working on. So with that, we won't be ready to close by May 1st. Steve Dunbar had asked that the contract be amended to provide for what would likely now become a June closing on the site. But with that, instead of putting a July 1 date, we figured we would just extend it out until August 1st if necessary, so we don't need to come back to you in your June meeting to get another extension if we don't have things figured out quite yet. So with that, we do have Jim Winkles from Amcon Construction. He's also part of the development team. And he can answer questions you might have as well as Attorney Casserly and I. But we would, like you did with the previous item, first, there's a resolution that would amend the existing contract, and the only change we're making is to that closing date, just moving it from May 1st until August 1st. With that, be happy to take any questions you have at this time.
So this amendment deals primarily with the extension of the closing date at this point.
Correct. That is the only change we're making.
And there will likely be other changes to be made between now and the actual closing date? Or you don't know yet?
I don't know yet, but we're certainly hoping not. And that's why we put August 1st on here instead of, July 1st, in case we can't get everything resolved with the demolition before June.
And has there been a determination yet as to who's going to do the demolition?
No, there is not. That's one of the issues where the getting rid of the concrete parking deck is it's fairly technical, and there's a huge swing in the demolition cost depending on how you do it.
Okay.
So that's what we're still trying to figure out.
Okay, so we have in front of us an amendment to defer the closing date for the contract with Fridley Investments LLC and the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Backlund?
Mr. Chair, have you talked to Park Construction at all about the ways in which that upper level could be
Yeah. Would you-
demolished?
Yes, come up and address us.
Hi, my name's Jim Winkles. I'm with Amcon Construction. I'm also part of Fridley Investments. Short answer is no. We have, however, engaged a structural engineer, actually a structural engineer that the city uses as a consultant too, to look at how we go about doing the demolition of that ramp. And as I think Paul did a really good job of describing the issue. And again, what we can't do is let the parking lot to the office building, Ebenezer, we can't let that just cave into the hole. So we've got to support that wall. The engineer is going to have consulting engineer, who's done a lot of things for the cities over the years, will have his report to us next week. We engaged him about a month ago to complete a report for us to help us with the demolition plan. We'll have that report next week, and then we will be able to go out, put together the whole demolition plan, and go out and bid the project. We are out right now for bids on the balance of the project, except for the site work. And those bids are actually going to be back in-house, are supposed to be in our office by a week from tomorrow. And then we hope to be able to go out very quickly after that, or sometime within the next 2 weeks, with the actual bidding for the demolition of the ramp. The way our contract reads with the HRA is that we have to get 3 bids, which we'll do. We do not have to use the low bid by our contract, but that contract amount on the low bid will be used in the determination on what the city HRA will reimburse for that amount. And that's important for us because it's important for coordination, it's important for efficiency and cost reasons. From a construction point of view, it's really important for us to have the same people doing the site work, the demolition, how they take down walls, how they fill holes is something that's going to be crucial when we start actually going up again. And we need to know what's down there, how they did it, and we need to effectively be able to control that. So we are moving along. The report's taken a little bit longer than what we thought to get, but again, it's important. And then we have to work with that plan, with that demolition plan, we have to work with the people who own the building, that office building there. We're going to be shutting off their northern entrance and they'll have to come in from the south. So we have to coordinate that with them also. So we've been in fairly constant communication with them, and everybody's on board what we have to do, but we have to go back with them one last time with our demolition plan so they can see how it's all going to work, so that we can all understand that we will protect their property.
Mr. Chairman, a bit of history. After the first year when it was built, the Fridley 49ers celebration had their Saturday night dance on top of that. And a number of people were dancing, and they were all in step. And so it began to drumhead and vibrate significantly. And I was a little nervous it would collapse, all right, because I talked to Dwayne Prairie, who was head of Park Construction at that point in time, and that was the last time they ever held that dance in there.
It's really a fascinating, on the surface of it, you think, well, we're just going to go out and knock down this parking ramp and do that. And then we start getting into it, which is, all part of your due diligence as you're doing these things. And we started going, wait a minute here. Then we found out it is a post-tension ramp. So that creates problems. So when we take what we refer to as the lid, the second deck on that thing, that's structurally all in place with the wall. And if we don't do something with that wall and do it properly, when we take off that lid, boom, it's gonna go like that, or could go like that. So we start thinking, wait a minute, now, but before we do that, we said, well, maybe we better get somebody out here, a good structural engineer, to make sure that we're doing this right here, so. So it's all coming together now, and everything else is moving along. We're having bi-weekly meetings with Ebenezer and the design people, talking about, they're picking out everything inside right now for all the furnishings and finishes and things like that. So there are multiple design meetings that personally I've been trying to find an excuse not to have to go to sit through 3 hours at a time, but my people from my office are going there. So, but it's all coming along very, very well. And Ebenezer is really getting into this thing in terms of getting their marketing going and things like that right now. So, and they're very enthused, and Ebenezer is, they're as good as anybody and probably the best in the state of Minnesota, and when it comes to senior care. So we're very, very happy to be working with them.
Thank you for that history lesson, Commissioner Backlund.
Yes, thank you.
Let me tell you, Mr. Chairman, I was there, and it was moving up and down. And boy, I'll tell you, I wonder how structurally sound this thing really is, because we're gonna find out right now.
Now we're aware of the type of construction. Very good. Any other questions? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the resolution authorizing execution and delivery of the First Amendment to the contract for private development between the Housing and Redevelopment Authority and Fridley Investments LLC?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a public hearing to approve the land sale from Fridley HRA to Fridley Investments LLC at 6431 University Avenue. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Mulrooney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Backlund. The public hearing is now open to discuss. Mr. Boland?
Certainly. Chair Holm, Commissioners, I will keep this brief. Mr. Winkles alluded to kind of some of the major components that are in that development agreement. The development agreement also lays out terms for the sale. And in this particular case, it was a $2.2 million sales price based on appraisals we had done. That was the fair market value. And then, like we do with a number of our projects, we're putting $2 million of that into escrow. And then those funds will be used to reimburse the developer for some of those extraordinary demolition costs that we're still trying to identify. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have. But again, this is just kind of that formal, you're giving it your formal blessing there that we move forward then, once we have everything in place with the demolition, and we're all in agreement on that, then we can go ahead and close on this property. So there is a resolution that you have up on the Diaz with you there that would authorize the sale of this property to Fridley Investments.
Question I have is, what are the financial implications for the sale of this property based on the questions still arising concerning demolition? Is that accommodated for in the sale price, or how is this handled?
Mr. Chairman, it's handled through the mechanics of creating, at the time of closing, we're creating an escrow in which the 2 million of the 2.2 million is being placed in escrow to cover these extraordinary costs. And we will work out a dispersing agreement. There are several documents that need to be sorted out yet, but there will be, we haven't seen anything that would suggest our costs would approach the 2 million. So we are assuming, we hope we're assuming correctly, that there will be additional monies that will be available to come back to the HRA and city. But it will in fact be covered by the escrow agreement. And again, I think as Paul pointed out, this is a very common arrangement for the HRA to place money in escrow or to provide reimbursement for extraordinary costs. We really do try to get fair market value for our property.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing.
Motion made by Commissioner Showalter to close the public hearing. And is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Oswald. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Finally, then, we have the final agenda item is the approval of the land sale. Fridley to Fridley Investments LLC, 6431 University Avenue. I guess we've heard all of the discussion about this. Is there any further discussion about the sale of the property? Hearing none, I call for a vote on approval I call for a resolution, a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the sale of property by the Housing and Redevelopment Authority to Fridley Investments LLC, the property at 6431 University Avenue. Is there a motion for that effect?
So moved.
Motion made, seconded?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion approved. Which completes all of the action items on our agenda for tonight. Informational items, I guess we have a housing and program update. Paul?
Certainly. Chairman Holm, Commissioners, in March, there were 2 loans that were closed out of the revolving loan fund, giving you 5 loans so far for the year to date. Remodeling Advisors did 1 visit in March. That was the first one of the year for that program. And they did 1 Home Energy Squad visit in March as well, giving you 12 for the year to date. And just to let you know, your May 2nd meeting will be at 7 o'clock. This should be the last of the 8:15 starts. So I thank you and I appreciate you being willing to stay this late on a Thursday night to meet, so thank you.
We appreciate the adjusted time. Anything else commissioners wish to raise? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Motion made to adjourn, second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.